Hello class, this is Mr. Hart, and in this lesson I want to talk about unit conversion. And this is a very important process in physics because a lot of times we describe things in units like feet and pounds, etc. But we really need to put those units into something we can work with in physics because a lot of the equations are based on SI units. So we need to think in terms of meters and kilograms and meters per second, etc. And so what we want to be able to do is switch quickly back and forth between units using unit conversion. And so we will need to learn this process and learn a way to do it effectively. So no matter what the conversion factor is, we can quickly set it up, figure out the new units that we're working with, etc. Okay, so let's just start off with a simple problem here. Okay, let's figure out how old you are in seconds. Okay, now hopefully you know your age in years. Okay, that's a good starting point. So let's go ahead and write that down. And if you're in high school, you're probably around 16 years old. So I'm going to just start with that. So let's say you're 16 years old. Okay. And if you think about it, there are 365 days in a year. So let's go ahead and multiply 16 by 365. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why that dot's not staying there. Okay. And then let's go ahead and say, well, I know there's 365 days in a year and there's 24 hours in a day. So I'll write that down. And then we know that there's 24 hours in a day and there's 60 minutes in an hour. So let's write that down. And then there is 60 seconds in a minute. So let's write that down as well. And if you multiply those all out, you get 16 times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. And your end result is around 500 million. Okay? So it's approximately equal to 500 million. And I'm going to try and get the right number of zeros there. About 500 million seconds. Okay? And I won't tell you my age in seconds, but let's say just say it's closer to a billion. Okay. Anywho, this is the process we went to get to how old we are in seconds, but we were doing something the whole time that we probably weren't thinking about. Okay. And that is we were actually canceling out units. Because if you think about it, 16 years, right, was multiplied by 365 days per year. And 24 hours per day, and 60 minutes per hour, and 60 seconds per minute. Okay, so what that means is that basically this year's that was on top cancel out with this year that was on the bottom. And these days that were on top cancel out with these days that are on the bottom. And these hours cancel out with these hours. And these minutes cancel out with these minutes, etc. And so the way we need to think about this is we cancel out the units we don't want until we get to the units that we do want. In this case, it was seconds. Okay? And so that's the way we're going to set up our conversion factors to convert to the right units. What units do I not want? I'm going to make sure those cancel out so I get the units that I do want. Okay? All right, so let's go through an example. Okay? Let's say I want to convert 251 centimeters to meters. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the units I start with up here. So I start with 251 centimeters. And then I need to find my conversion factor. And if you look at your unit sheet on Canvas, you'll see that it says that 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. Okay, so now these are equal, which means we can put them in a conversion factor, and our goal is to cancel out the units that we currently have to get to the units we want. So in this case, I want centimeters to be on bottom. So I'm going to write 100 centimeters down here, so that cancels out with the centimeters here. Okay, so those are going to cancel out. And then I put the 1 meter on top. So you find your conversion factor, You look for the unit you want to cancel out. You make sure that one's on the bottom so that you're left with the unit you want on top. Now it's just the process of multiply these two numbers on top and divide by the number on bottom. And if you do this, you get 251 times 1 divided by 100, and you're left with 2.51 meters. Okay, meters never got canceled out, so that's the unit you're left with. Okay, so find your conversion factor, put the units you don't want on bottom so they cancel out, and then multiply by the number on top and divide by the number on bottom. And the reason we can do this too, if you think about it, is if these two numbers are truly equal, then dividing them just gives you 1. So multiplying a number by 1 doesn't change the number, it's just changing how it's expressed. Okay, something to think about. It's kind of interesting. We're not really changing its value, we're just changing how it's expressed. Let's look at another example. Okay, so we got convert 14 seconds to milliseconds. And now in this case, what we'll do is we'll say, well, I'm going to start with my 14 seconds on top. And again, if you look at your unit sheet, you'll see that it says 1,000 millimeters is in 1 meter. But it doesn't matter that it says meters. That's true for any unit. So 1,000 milliseconds is also in 1 second. So you can replace the last part of that with whatever you want. It doesn't have to be meters. Could be grams, could be seconds, etc. So we find our conversion factor. We say, okay, I want seconds to be gone. I want to cancel out seconds. So I'm going to put the 1 second on bottom and the 1,000 milliseconds on top. Then seconds cancel out. I'm left with milliseconds. Okay, so I get 14 times 1,000 divided by 1. Well, that's going to give you 14,000 milliseconds. Okay. All right, let's do one more. And in this case, we've been doing a lot of metric to metric. Let's do a English customary unit to metric. Let's go from miles to meters. Okay, so convert 8 miles to meters. And again, if you draw or put 8 miles in the top left to start, you always start with what you have in the top left. And then if you look at your conversion sheet, you'll see that a mile, one mile equals 1,600 meters. Okay, so 1 mile equals 1,600 meters. We want miles to cancel out, so we're going to put the 1 mile on bottom and the 1,600 meters on top. So it's going to be 8 times 1,600 divided by 1, and that's going to give you 12,800 meters. Okay, so that's the process. Find your conversion factor, put the one you don't want on the bottom, make sure they cancel out, multiply by the thing on the top, divide by the thing on the bottom, and you'll always set up your conversion factors properly. Okay. One other word of advice is sometimes you may need to do this twice. For example, if you're converting inches into meters, your reference sheet doesn't have one for inches to meters directly, but it does have one for inches to feet and from feet to meters. So you can set this up 2 times if you need to get to the unit that you want. You can even just write the 2 parentheses, the 2 conversion factors right next to each other, and do it in 1 step. And then just multiply by everything on top and divide by everything on the bottom. Okay, but do as many steps as you need. Most of the times it's just 1 step, and that's why I'm just showing you 1 step here. But that's the process. So hopefully from now on you feel comfortable converting units as needed. Make sure to do the homework, and I'll talk to you later.